referred to as in-destination experiences. So if you're a person who operates boat tours here in St. Pete, or jet ski rentals, or a zip lining business, pretty much any of the fun activities that we like to do while we're traveling, you might be a member of Arival, because Arival provides owners and operators of these in-destination experiences with great resources and connects them into a network of other owners and operators who can share best practices and really help each other to learn new and innovative ways to grow their businesses. So in terms of our tech stack, since it's a paid membership, we're using Stripe to track paid members. We're using WordPress on our actual site, keeping track of memberships there as well. And then in terms of our CRM, we're using Zoho, both from like a CRM, analytics, and digital marketing perspective. So yeah.
Cool. Okay. How do you decide what to measure? What criteria? What's your process?
Yeah. So really great question. I think the answer is different depending on what scenario you're in. And as community managers, there's a myriad of scenarios, right? In terms of identifying which are the best metrics to track. In the case of Arival, it's paid membership. So we definitely want to keep track of, and we have like tiers of membership as well, right? So you have free members, you have paid members. One of the things that we're taking a close look at right now is, who are all of our paid members? And then of those paid members, sort of classifying them into segments based on how large is their business. So we have small operators, and there's typically revenue thresholds that are associated with that. We also have medium to large operators, again, revenue thresholds associated with that. And then there's a segment for what we call non-operators, and these might be associations, nonprofits, other organizations that are interested in, some of the research that we're doing.
Cool.
Yeah.
I will ask one more question, and then unless folks want to ask questions right now, I'll just ask one more, and you guys take the floor. So what's your reporting cadence to leadership?
That's a very good question. Right now, I want to say it's like monthly, where we're, dipping into our systems and taking a pulse at like, okay, who are the new members that we got this month? How many of them signed up for a free membership? How many signed up for a paid membership? So yeah, it's a monthly cadence at the moment.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't want to be the conversation hog. So who has a question for Jeffrey? He's all yours, and he's been a community manager for a long time, and he brings a lot to the table.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know we've got, only a few people in so far, and we're only 7 minutes in. So, I mean, feel free to, the questions don't have to be specific to metrics unless there's something that's really burning. I'm happy to talk about all things community since we have a small group.
And it's being recorded too, so folks can.
It'll be available for folks who aren't able to tune in.
Because we all know stuff happens.
Yeah. All right.
I guess I'll chime in, even though
cool.
I do work with Jeff at Arival, and funny enough, we are. I learned from his bio that he was doing community now for the Conqueror Challenge, which is something I've been doing for a couple years now, a year. Yeah, so I'm on my 4th challenge, and so we kind of keep finding these unique audiences that we're all connected to. But
oh yes,
I'm here partially because I've been familiar with CMX, but I kind of love the idea of what I've seen from it right now. It doesn't look like we have much of an. I'm sure we have an audience here in Atlanta, but I'm not positive that we actually have You know, I was looking at, you know, the different community things around here, and I wasn't seeing a whole lot. So again, that also piques my interest. So yeah, it's funny, I don't necessarily work directly with community, but I think that anybody who works in marketing by default works in community. And one of the big things is just, you know, maybe, Jeff, something we haven't necessarily talked about, but as you're starting to dive more in with Arival, I think a question could be just what types of metric reporting, whether, you know, it's specifically analytics based, or potentially something else that you have used previously, and successfully to really work with varying sizes of communities. So Arival is obviously much more niche, and the membership is fairly new, versus maybe some of the other organizations you've been part of and have done metrics and reporting for. You know, are there things that you've used that have been successful in, you know, in tracking that?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I think that there's both some knowledge I can share from my previous experience, as well as other tools that I've become aware of, but haven't necessarily used just yet, but I'm like very interested to see how they work hands-on. And to answer your question, I think one of the tactics that can be used, especially if you're thinking about things from a brand awareness perspective, is like this social listening aspect of it. So like when I was at Koros, one of the components of our platform was a social listening tool where you could create queries based on phrases, based on hashtags, based on, you know, as much research as you've done into what's the potential like of the landscape of the conversation that's taking place, in order to insert yourself, or at least just get knowledge by listening, observing and reporting your insights into like what kinds of conversations are people having that are relevant to your brand. If they're not directly about your brand, then they might be in the space where your brand operates. So thinking about community from that perspective of, you know, maybe folks who maybe you're not directly targeting them through ads, or maybe they're just not, you know, haven't become a member of your community organically. Tapping into that social listening element can be extremely powerful if you're trying to get your brand out there, or if you're just trying to get a sense of who could potentially be new members of your community, if you're thinking about it from a member acquisition perspective. So that's a little bit of what I've done in the past, and a tool that I know to be hugely powerful when it comes to this is a platform called Common Room. And Common Room takes a look at various sources that may or may not be a part of your tech stack, but allows you to start building out that infrastructure of, okay, well, what is our social listening, like the net that we're casting in terms of social listening? Like, what is that going to look like? What sources are we going to plug into? Are we going to be looking on social? Are we going to be looking, taking a closer look at maybe sources that are already part of our tech stack to get deeper insights into how our members or our users are navigating through the different platforms we're offering them, in order to get deeper insights into what it is they're actually doing? How can we take that information and use it to give them, to deliver either content or any part of the experience that would be more pleasing for them, that'll give them a better experience? I hope that answers your question and that makes sense.
Yeah. And it looks like that may have, I see Annette was also saying, I think Common Room is great. I will definitely look at that, and I'm sure we'll work on that together. But yeah, that's a great, you mentioned the ads, and that's something that, for instance, we haven't done as much with at Arival, but, you know, for events, you're always looking at, you know, ROAS, the revenue to ad spend, And that's something huge for communities. If you are, it can be very cost effective to run ads and do some geofencing and things like that. That then, if you're tying that back into your tech stack, could have some pretty amazing metrics on it. That's great.
100%.
Cool. Did you see can you see the chat, Jeffrey?
Yes, I see that Annette dropped something in.
So did Kelly.
Okay, let's go back up to Kelly. Okay. If you find limitations within Zoho. Yeah, I mean, it's still early, and to be quite honest, I previously have only used Zoho in the context of building out a knowledge base. So getting familiar with it from a CRM, analytics, digital marketing perspective is quite new to me. What I can say is that as we think about metrics like membership tracking, one of the things that we're particularly focused on right now is just getting alignment between the different platforms, right? So you might have WordPress give you a particular number in terms of your membership, but you want to qualify that with the rest of your tech stack because they're all kind of keeping track of these things. So yeah, I don't know if I necessarily call it a limitation, as much of just, a challenge in terms of reconciling that metric and arriving on, hey, like, what's our one source of truth?
And then I think Annette had a question.
Yeah, let's see what that has to say. Just recently joined the community management, building ecosystem, been fun so far. Community analyst. Oof. I love when there's like specialized community roles. That gets me excited. Within an org that deals with learners, one of the KPIs is community metrics and reporting. I feel not prepared for this. My question would be any resources you would recommend when it comes to community metrics and reporting for a newbie. Richard Millington is a huge resource for me. He's kind of the go-to guy when it comes to all things community. Lori, feel free to drop his
exactly what I'm doing.
feverbee.com into the chat. Yeah, he's great. There's a plethora of resources there on Feverbee. I mean, you could probably just do a search for metrics and find a number of articles, if not like, white papers that you can download, and they can really give you the soup to nuts in terms of, what you should be measuring and why. Being that you're quite new to all of this, the one recommendation that I would make is really taking the time to get to know the different stakeholders across your organization in every part of the org. Spend some discovery time getting to know what are the KPIs and the metrics that they're tracking for their teams. But also, if you can, like, spend some time with senior leadership and get a sense of what are the overarching KPIs and metrics for the business as a whole. And once you have a sense of both of those things, you can figure out, okay, well, maybe it's product or marketing or sales that they're tracking these KPIs and metrics for their teams, and this is how it's laddering up to senior leadership KPIs for the business as a whole. And then you can sort of arrive at, okay, well, what are going to be the metrics specific to the community team? And I would also encourage you to, as you're discovering that, start to build relationships with your cross-functional stakeholders. And if you can, develop some sort of like foundation for shared goals that you can both sort of work towards together, because you want the work that you're doing to be delivering value to their parts of the org as well. And you kind of like you develop this collaborative relationship where, you might establish like little mini KPIs that are both serving good on both ends of the spectrum. So yeah, definitely spend quality time with your team members, because it'll really set you up to be successful in what you're doing, and it'll really help to prove the business case for community within your organization.
Thanks. Does anybody else have any questions? So would you be willing to share your backstory, Jeffrey, about how you got into community and worked at Chorus and all that?
Yes, absolutely. So I started working in community back in 2011. I got an internship straight out of while I was finishing my last semester in college, working at an ed tech company called 2U. And for anyone who's not aware, 2U is a technology company that partners with some of the top tier universities in the country to help deliver their master's degree programs online. So, you know, back when they started, it was like 2008, and online degrees didn't exactly have the best street cred in the business world. And the company's mission was to change that perception, right? They said, we want to flip it. We want people to know that you can get a quality degree online, and it's something that you really worked hard for. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to partner exclusively with top tier universities in the States. Not your Ivy Leagues, but, you know, like University of Southern California, Georgetown, University of North Carolina, if I didn't already say that. Yeah. So I was the community manager for the Masters of Arts in Teaching at USC. But in addition to doing things like managing their alumni program and building relationships with current and prospective students, a lot of the work that I did was very focused on content marketing. So I spent a lot of time working with freelance writers and graphic designers to produce blogs or infographics, of course, centered around topics in the education space, since that was my vertical. And then once those content pieces would get published, I would then conduct outreach to see where I could get them syndicated for increased visibility. So cold emailing lists of people that either had blogs in the education space or were thought to be influencers or thought leaders, and seeing, you know, pitching them an idea. Hey, I'd love to guest post on your blog about such and such topic related to education. And then if I got the thumbs up and that got greenlit, I would then work simultaneously with SEO managers to make sure that whatever we're working on has some sort of keyword or phrase within the body of the post or within a byline that, you know, could surface that content for people who are just going on Google and searching for masters in education. So that's kind of where I fell in love with the work. From there, I went in the direction of social media management. I spent about a year or so working with a snack food subscription service called Graze. And I was really just a one-man team, making sure that they maintained a clean and consistent presence on all of their social channels. From there, I joined the listener care team at SiriusXM, where I was primarily responsible for capturing the voice of the community and sharing that with our internal stakeholders to have that inform some of their content publishing decisions going forward. And then from there, I joined the team at Khoros, where I was a senior community manager working on their strategic services team. So for anyone who doesn't know, Khoros is probably one of the more well-known community software platforms on the market. And being that I worked on their strategic services team, we kind of functioned like an agency within the business. So we served a segment of our clients who, in addition to subscribing to our software, either had no community management teams to speak of or had small teams that weren't operating at scale yet. So they would tap my team for additional services. We would take care of all their community moderation. We would run analytics and deliver reports around all their community program initiatives. We would do some ad hoc projects like social listening, like I was mentioning earlier. And yeah, that was a very interesting time in my career. I, was able to work my way up from a community manager into a senior level role, started, people managing and coaching and mentoring other community managers. And also because of the fact that we worked like an agency, we were managing multiple communities simultaneously. We were working on projects, maybe 5 to 7 projects that would change month over month. So you really had an opportunity to see how community management worked across several industry verticals in a much shorter span of time than you would going from job to job working with singular brands. So that was a very good time in my career. Learned a lot. That was when I started hosting events for CMX while I was living in Austin. And then I was there for about 3.5 years before moving to Florida. I got the Tampa Bay chapter of CMX launched in September of last year. From there, I kind of started focusing my community management efforts in the B2B SaaS space. So I started working for a company called Bright Cove. They're an online video platform that allows brands to host and analyze all of their online video content, their first customer community. So I helped them to do that on Salesforce Experience Cloud. From there, I joined the team at DecisionLink, which is another B2B SaaS company that was also embarking on building their first customer community. So help them to do that on the Hivebright platform, which is another community software platform. And that kind of brings me to today. I've been with Arival and with Conqueror for about the past 2 months or so, and yeah, the journey continues. It's been quite a ride, and I learn a lot with every new opportunity that I'm fortunate enough to be blessed with. So yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell.
That's incredibly impressive. Wow, what a track record. Does anybody have any other questions they'd like to ask?
Related to B2B, do you have any recommendations for getting people to post and sign up for your community? Any difference from B2C? Yeah, I would say that B2B is a little trickier, right? Because with B2C communities, from what I've seen, at least, the community component tends to be sort of built into the product itself, right? So with something like the Conqueror challenges, these are designed for folks who are either, very enthusiastic about working out and embracing a healthy lifestyle around fitness, or folks who are starting to gravitate towards that. They know it's good for them. Maybe they haven't done it historically, but are looking for like-minded individuals to keep them motivated and encouraged, feeling encouraged. So the challenge part of it is also like very, prominent. And I would say this is also true of like gaming communities, the participation factor is built into it. You want to be the best gamer. You want to, see your name on a leaderboard. So it's like, it lends itself very easily to community. You don't really have to go that hard in terms of marketing your community, although you might target some new customers based on, what the level of awareness is about whatever game it is you might be working with, especially if you're a company like I used to do community management for Meta Quest, like Meta's virtual reality headset, right? Back when I was doing that work, it was still Facebook and it was called Oculus. But yeah, those kinds of communities are highly engaged and enthusiastic. So it's a lot easier than a B2B community where your community might be built around a product. So in that regard, I would probably say if it's B2B, chances are there's a product associated with it and there are customers who have questions that need to be answered. So like lean into that use case for a B2B community that can really leverage the power of community to alleviate support costs and case deflection and all of these wonderful things that let members know, hey, this is a good place for you to come to get some of your questions answered. So yeah, that's what I would say for the B2B question. I think we got something else that popped into the chat. Oh, so Safia says, we use Insighted, which gives you analytics for your community hub platform, user post replies, Is there anything else you recommend getting metrics outside of a central platform? That's a really good question. I don't know if you have this ability with Insided, but if you're able to sort of take some of those basic metrics of users and posts and replies and aggregate that data to tell you, like, to give you something like, who are your top contributors? That's something that is pretty easy to track if you're working with a community that lives as a Facebook group, but I'm not sure on the community platform side of things how much that translates over. And there are pros and cons to both. So yeah, I would say if you're able to synthesize that data or aggregate it in a way where you are able to identify who your top contributors are, then you can begin to deploy tactics and strategies that create a little bit of FOMO within your community. And, one of the things that I've done previously is, finding out who those members are and nurturing their contributions, really making sure that they're recognized and uplifted in your community to say, hey, we're going to do a spotlight series on our top contributors. And here's this member, member of the month or something like that, where you're saying, this person really has done a wonderful job at helping people out, answering some questions, encouraging their fellow members. And we really appreciate that. And here's a little bit more about them. It's a really great way to create some of that FOMO, give something back to members who have contributed to your community, and encourages others. You sort of establish this culture, right? You want to establish a culture that sets the stage for the kinds of behaviors you're looking to see from your members. And when you do those kinds of things, it reinforces that culture and it encourages others to act in the same way. Of course, you're welcome. All right, half past the hour.
Yep, we got 30 more minutes if people want to go longer or not. Do you want to talk about other parts since we've got some new folks here? Do you want to talk about the other things that we do, like moderation and different engagement strategies and cross-functional collaboration, things like that? Thanks, Carrie. Would folks be interested in hearing Jeffrey's perspective on that or something else?
Yeah, open forum to anyone who's still with us.
Yes, please. Okay.
Okay, Annette, where would you like to begin? We threw out a few suggestions there, so if you have anyone in particular that's top of mind for you, feel free to let me know.
Maybe we start with the moderation.
Moderation.
Yeah.
Okay, I think Annette came off of mute.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I have nothing in particular, but at this point, I just want all the information I can gather in regards to community management. So, whatever angle you choose to go with, I'd be so happy.
Okay, excellent. I mean, well, tell me a little bit about your experience in community management so far. I know that you mentioned you're still new to it, but what have you learned so far, and maybe that can help inform what I think of to say.
Okay, so my journey started last year as an ambassador for this particular program that I was doing. So being one of the active learners, we were taken in as interns just to practice what we had been learning. And at that time, as I was coming in as an intern, we had team members that had already set up everything in regards to community. Like I said earlier, we deal with learners. So at least every other 3 months, we have a new cohort coming in. And basically, what was happening last year was just me executing what was already set in place by the community managers at that time. But starting this year, there were new programs that we did introduce. So I did some community analyst, yes, for a Salesforce program that we do offer. Now, this time round, I am not executing what was already set up. I am the one setting up the things that we need to do. So if it's in regards to comms, I have to make sure that, comms are relatable to whatever the learners are doing. If it's events, I have to make sure all the sessions are run, in a manner that is appropriate and maintaining the community and still maintaining the community engagement, which has been really fun. It really got me out of my comfort zone. So I had to step back because I realized I don't really know this world. I call it the ecosystem really well. So I had to step back for a minute, look for platforms that I can start learning. Now that's why I'm here. So the moment I heard about metrics and reporting, that was one of the big KPIs that I have to take care of, and it's scary but exciting at the same time. So yeah, that's basically my short journey in the ecosystem.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great context for me to have. I think it's wonderful that the community that you're working with, since it's a community of learners, the fact that you are structuring your program based on cohorts is a really effective way to garner interest in your program and keep folks motivated and interested to participate on both ends of the spectrum, right? Like, you're interested in getting new students to become part of additional cohorts that you're going to be hosting in the future. And then you also want to be able to leverage learners who have participated in previous cohorts to not only give recommendations about your program and say how it benefited them and what value it added to their career or to their learning journey, whatever it is that the learning is associated with. It might be professional development learning, or it might just be, student learning. But yeah, you definitely want to maintain relationships with previous cohorts, to have them make recommendations about your program, whether that be in the form of testimonials, whether that be in the form of providing feedback about the program. What are some of the things that they wish that they knew upon joining their cohort that might be beneficial to future cohorts of learners, right? And help that onboarding process get a little bit more streamlined. And maybe that even goes as far as to create some sort of a mentorship program where you're pairing up new cohorts of learners with previous participants to help sort of help them navigate through that learning journey. And not sure if there's like a learning platform associated with this cohort program, but feedback about your LMS and how it's organized and how the learning modules are structured. All of that feedback can be very beneficial to your program. And I think outside of that, the other thing that I would definitely say as a new community manager, you definitely want to make sure that anything that you're doing that you find to be effective, you are documenting it. Make sure that you stay mindful, not just of metrics and reporting, but also of processes and operations, and making sure that all of your workflows are well documented. So that way, when the time comes that you move on to your next adventure, or you have to, even if you're still in your role, and let's say you want to go take a break, go on vacation, you're out sick, somebody has to step in and cover for you. There's nothing worse than being that community manager who walks into a community with no roadmap, no sort of guide for, okay, how do I figure this out in terms of what works best for this community? So definitely document all of your successes, all of your what's failed, all the quote unquote failures, which if you learn something from it, it's not a failure, right? So document all of those things, your processes and procedures, so that way you don't forget any of that stuff. And if you when the time comes that you pass the baton to somebody else, they don't go into a situation blind. So yeah, those are my thoughts around around your particular circumstance. And you know, I thank you for being here and appreciate your journey already. 1 year in, and it sounds like you already have learned a lot. So just keep going. Definitely keep going, and feel free to stay in touch after this event. You know, I'm always a resource for any of my community friends.
That's one of the things I love about being a community manager is there's none of this, you know, like top competition stuff, right?
There's no room for ego in community.
No, there isn't. And everybody wants to help each other. And that was shocking to me.
Yeah.
That was shocking to me when I first got into the community. I was like, what? So, yeah, does anybody else have any questions?
Let me make sure I drop my LinkedIn in here just in case.
Do you guys want to talk about another community topic like engagement strategies or community strategy or events or what else? Cross-functional collaboration, influencing leadership. I think I covered all the big ones. I'm sure I missed something, but to start.
Yeah, those are all major ones. Pretty biggies. I would probably say, okay, let's see.
Common Room.
So yes, Common Room is a good platform for social listening. I started talking about Common Room as we were talking about social listening and using that as a tool to maybe build some brand awareness, may potentially grow your community. You know, if you're able to execute it in a way where you're not like soliciting members. You know, no community member wants to feel like they're being sold to or marketed to. So you kind of have to be very tactful, mindful, tasteful in the way that you do it. And one of the things that you want to make sure that you're doing is really offering value up front. You kind of have to like give away a little bit of value before you can expect to see anything in return. But getting back to the social listening component, you know, Common Room is able to plug into various resources. Some of those might be social platforms that you have a presence on. Some of those just might be like sort of hashtag listening. Some of those sources might be connected to parts of your tech stack that you're already leveraging for your community. But it's a great way to get a sense of conversations that are taking place in and around your community that you may or may not be a part of. And you can start to think about what matters to your members or non-members, potential members. What do they really care about? What are they discussing? It's a great way for you to find out some of that discovery, some of those pain points and challenges that they're facing without having to go through the steps of like reaching directly out to people or cold emailing someone, inviting them to, you know, would you like to hop on a call with me and discuss blah, blah, blah. That kind of puts you in that bracket, in that window of like seeming like you're trying to sell something. So yeah, definitely look into Common Room if you're curious about social listening and deep community analytics for sure. Let's see. Any thoughts on promoting events via community? Do it. Promote it. If you're running events in conjunction with your community, I mean, I guess it all depends too, right? Like if the events, you know, are they in-person events? Are they virtual events? You don't want to promote the event to a community of folks that, you know, aren't where the event is going to be taking place or don't have the opportunity to attend. So maybe you have an events team that's just running on its own, and the community team needs to be close to that events team to find out, you know, what are some events that we might be that we might be hosting? What does our upcoming event schedule look like? What does our past event schedule look like? Is any of the content within those events valuable to our community? And if it's in person, how can we take the content from that in-person event and digitize it for our community members who weren't able to attend in person, right? So there was a, oh gosh, I just saw this the other day. I think it was a team member of mine who shared this wonderful graphic. Gosh, let me see if I can I share my screen on here? It looks like I can. Let's see if I can pull up a window. Yes. Okay. So it looks like you guys should be able to see this, but this is a diagram that goes over step by step how to repurpose your event content. So transcribing your sessions, creating video highlights, clean up your original video, create written text highlights, extract audio clips, use visuals. Like, this is a wonderful graphic that really shows you how you can take content from an in-person event and repurpose it in various digital touch points. So I would encourage some of that. Gosh, let's see. Let me hide this. All right, I'm going to stop sharing. Yeah, I would definitely use some of that as ways to promote events in the community. Really, it comes down to a matter of, are you delivering value or not? And there are plenty of ways that you can get to that value, I think. So, you know, experiment, you know, get to know your events team if they're not already a part of the community team. And yeah, definitely promote what would be valuable for your community members. Let's see. Influencing leadership. That was actually what I was gonna start talking about before folks started making suggestions. So influencing leadership is a particularly interesting topic to me, simply because I think as community managers, you know, we don't exactly wake up when we're children with the aspirations of becoming a community manager, right? Like, no one wakes up and says, Mom and Dad, I want to be a community manager when I grow up. As a matter of fact, Adrian Spire wrote a book called The Accidental Community Manager. And I think that's true of most, if not all of us. We're all kind of accidental community managers. You know, we may have started out on one career trajectory, but community at some point fell into our laps, and some of us, a lot of us, have grown to really love it. I know I have. So the flip side of that coin, though, is that we aren't the most, let's just put it this way. Community managers don't have the most sophisticated level of business acumen. That's a skill that you learn and develop over time. And the more you are involved in different kinds of organizations, the more you are exposed to different flavors of business acumen, because every business is a little bit different. So when it comes to influencing leadership, number one, you have to know how the business works, right? So what does the business model look like? How do we make money as a company, right? And then from there, you can begin to discover what it is that's most important to senior leadership. And once you've taken the time to do a bit of that research and understand the way the organization works and how it generates revenue, how it makes a profit, and what does the business model look like, you can then begin to make a connection between that and how community can help drive that even further. So that would be the point after you've done your research, where you feel a little bit more confident to go into a conversation with leadership and then begin to scratch beneath the surface of that to get to the heart of, okay, what are the KPIs and metrics that you're working towards as a senior level executive who's in charge of the overall health of the business. And then really asking some hard-hitting questions at times to get a sense of what matters the most. You know, I've been on calls with CEOs where they've thought that they wanted to build a community, and I've kind of put that motivation to the test. And I've had conversations with CEOs where I've literally looked them in the face and say, why do you want a community? You know, and that's, you know, when you put that question onto them, it forces them to really evaluate how they perceive the value of community. What does it mean to them? Before you come and tell them, oh, community can do this and it can do that and it can do the other thing. That all sounds great, but if you're not putting it in the context of the business and how is this going to equate to dollars and cents for the company, then, you know, senior leadership's not going to get very excited by the fluff of community. And that's the bad rap that we get as community managers, is that we're known for our big fluffy personalities, but we don't have the business acumen to match that. So do your homework on the business, and also do your homework in terms of being able to connect the value of community within the context of a business organization. You know, being able to connect those things and speak to how community can deliver value to product, deliver value to marketing, sales, or every part of your organization. And just, you know, it's a practice. Like I said, it's a skill that is learned and that's developed over time. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on influencing leadership. We're at 10 minutes left. Let's see. I know we've got some more suggestions in here. Field marketing. Yeah. Field marketing. Maybe Lori, I can get you back on camera to talk a little bit about how are we defining field marketing? Are we talking about folks like sales folks who are, you know, jumping on calls that are like trying to close deals? Like, oh yes.
As Sophia pointed out, they definitely have the budget, and, you know, working with them to plan events that are bigger, or things I've done is leapfrog onto their events.
Right.
So I did, for example, an Unsummit that had to do with like the first in-person user conference in a dog's age. So working with them and keeping them in the loop about what you're doing and how it's going to work, and you know, making sure that's a solid relationship, because they've got a lot on their plate, and making sure they understand that you're getting it taken care of and it's not something they have to deal with.
Right. Yeah. That's huge, especially if you're a company who's leaning in very heavily on in-person events. Such is the case at Arival right now. You know, like we're getting ready for our next conference, which will be here in Orlando in October. So big budget in-person event, lots of speakers, lots of keynotes, lots of breakout sessions, lots of sponsors, you know, in present at the event. And one of the things that I'm currently tasked with is, okay, well, what are we going to be doing for our members while we're there? You know, we've had things that have worked in the past that we're taking a look at, like maybe wellness sessions, maybe a little bit of yoga, maybe some exercise. But we also are thinking about, you know, sort of fundraising components that can work in conjunction with that. Some birds of a feather lunch tables where we have, you know, when we break for lunch during the conference, setting up tables that are specific to a particular topic. So if there was, you know, a group of folks who was interested in talking about metrics and reporting, then there's a lunch table for that. You know, how are we going to engage our members at the event and make sure that they have an experience where they feel like they got a little bit of shine too, where it's not just all about the speakers and the sessions and the big spotlight stuff. You want to make some room for them and make sure that they're, at the very least, that they're able to find each other while they're there, right? So yeah, definitely partner closely with your field marketing teams in order to really ensure that that experience takes place. Cool.
Does anybody have any more questions or comments?
And I think, Lori, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're going to be continuing this conversation in Microsoft Teams. Is that correct?
If people if people want to talk to you in Microsoft Teams and just text you using that application, they can.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, definitely looking forward to hearing from folks in there. We've been fortunate enough to have the Microsoft Teams folks partner with us to, co-hosting these events along with Lori. And Lori's been such a great steward of that platform. So we definitely encourage folks, if you want to keep talking about this or anything else community related, really. Is there a particular group within MS Teams that folks should be looking for? Is it just like the main CMX?
The main one. There, when folks registered for this event, there was a link in the invitation that said, "Here's how you join if you want to have an after party," as I like to call it. So that's how a code is generated, and you can just get on board really quickly and create a profile or not. But if folks want to do that, they can do that as well.
Excellent. Excellent.
Well, it seems like a good time to wrap up.
Yeah, I feel good. I feel good about this.
I do too.
This actually turned out to be a really great chat.
Well, it's always a great chat when you're around. So, folks, thank you so much for your time. If you want to reach out to Jeffrey in the next 30 or so minutes, please feel free to in the Microsoft app. If you want to reach out to him on Slack or through LinkedIn or elsewhere, he is very, very responsive.
Yes.
And, and it's good to have you guys with us. Very excited to have some new faces. And, ping us anytime if you want guidance or mentoring or whatever. No question is too small.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
Thank you all so much for your time, and we'll see you again soon.
Thanks, Lori.